Hey everyone, my name's Adam Reid Wilson, and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about my journey with chronic illness and I share the things that I'm learning along the way with you. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you want to support the work I'm doing on an ongoing basis, consider becoming a member on my Buy Me a Coffee page. Members get exclusive perks like a weekly encouragement video from me and some other really cool things. And the best part about it is that it's only $5 a month, and your support would mean the world to me. But hey, today what I want to talk to you about is how I habituated to my tinnitus. I made a video about that, or about how I'm doing better than I was 2.5 years ago. About 3 weeks ago, I made that video, and I had someone comment, how did you habituate? And there's, a couple things that I think may really help people who are in the position that I was in when I first got my tinnitus to habituate. I always like mentioning in these videos that I'm not a doctor, I'm just a dude who has tinnitus. And so I can't answer any specific questions about anyone's tinnitus in the comments section, but hopefully some of the discoveries I've made that have helped me get to the place I'm at today will help you as well, and just kind of unlock some things for you that'll help you go further on your journey to habituation. So how I habituated to my tinnitus. The first way that I habituated to my tinnitus is I stopped trying to habituate to my tinnitus. And I know that that sounds a little weird, but here's what I mean. When you're focused on habituation and you're trying to habituate, then that means you're actually focused on your tinnitus all the time. You're obsessing over your tinnitus. And so instead, what I did is I kind of introduced some healthier habits and behaviors in my life that helped me to let go of my tinnitus over time. And that brings me to my next point. The first thing that I did, the first behavior that I incorporated is I stopped trying to monitor my tinnitus. And this was a really, really big one for me. When my tinnitus first got really bad, about 2.5 years ago, all I thought about every day was my tinnitus. I would wake up and it's the first thing that I thought about. I'd think about it all throughout the day. I'd have trouble falling asleep, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night. It was literally hell. I could not think about anything else. And during the day, I would monitor my tinnitus nonstop. So, I would be concerned, are there more sounds that are appearing? Are the frequencies of my sounds changing? And so I would do things like lock myself in the closet and see, if things were get to a really quiet place where I could hear my tinnitus perfectly, and then I would try to assess, if things were changing, and if things weren't changing, I felt good. I felt temporary relief. But if I perceived that things did change, I went down in this just death spiral of anxiety. And sometimes I would lock myself in my car and do the same thing. And even sometimes if I was in a louder environment where my tinnitus wasn't intrusive, where if I wasn't thinking about it, I wouldn't hear it. I wouldn't even be aware of it. I would stick my finger in my ear and see if anything changed. It was unnecessary torture. And so the first way that I kind of started to let go of my tinnitus so that I could habituate was I stopped monitoring it. And I would say my behavior with my tinnitus bordered on OCD, where my obsession was my tinnitus and my compulsion was checking it. I'm not saying my tinnitus was caused by my OCD, but I'm saying I had a very OCD-like cycle going with my tinnitus. And so I kind of did just exposure type therapy. I actually have dealt with some OCD in the past, and so I was familiar with this. But I would do things like when I felt the urge to check it, I would just not check it. And I would feel really, really anxious. But after you do that repeatedly, the obsession kind of loses its power a little bit, and you don't feel the need to check it. So I would encourage you, if you're checking your tinnitus, try to stop doing that. And it wasn't something that I stopped doing overnight. I can honestly say I really don't check my tinnitus at all anymore. I can say 100% of the time I don't check my tinnitus. But if you are checking your tinnitus a lot, stop. What I was getting at, sorry, I lost my train of thought, is it's not something that happened overnight, but the gaps in which I was checking got farther and farther between until I got to the point I'm at now. So step 1, I stopped trying to habituate to my tinnitus. Step 2, I stopped monitoring my tinnitus. And then step 3 was I started distracting myself a little bit. So even when my tinnitus was really loud, I could do certain activities that would take my mind off of it. When I'm into something, I am into something. And that's actually how I started this YouTube channel, is it gave me a project. It gave me something to work on. And so what I would do is I would, write a script for a video that I was going to do. And then I'd go to my office. And even though I was in a quiet place where my tinnitus was very loud, I would go in my office and I would film a video, and I would notice my tinnitus some, and it would bother me, and I'd still, like I call it the death spiral, I'd still have a tendency to want to go down that. But distracting myself with making these YouTube videos really, really helped me. That's why I've actually been posting less over the last couple of years, or the last year or so, is just because I haven't really felt a need to distract myself as much, but I'm getting back into that now. And so I want to be able to really share what I've learned on my journey to help other people. Another thing that I would do is I would go on walks. So for me, if I'm outside, I can still hear my tinnitus. So I would go on walks. Sometimes I would be distracted enough, I wouldn't notice it for bits of time. If I was having a particularly hard night, I'd just pop in my earbuds, and of course on a low volume, and I would just either play a podcast, play music, or just play another sound that would mask my tinnitus. Oh, pardon me, it's been a long day. Gotta yawn. Gotta yawn every now and then. So those are just 2 activities that I would do. But there's some of you who probably have stopped doing things you love because of your tinnitus. Maybe you've been so anxious that you've stopped riding your bicycle, even though you love it. Maybe you've stopped running. Maybe you've stopped going to the gym. Maybe you've stopped going to concerts. I would encourage you to start doing the things that you love again. I know concerts is a tricky one, right? But not all of us are in a place where we can do that. But start doing things that you love again. Get lost in those things. And I think you'll find that you can distract yourself from your tinnitus. So there's a couple other things that I did that I'm going to sort of lump into one point. I'll just call it self-care. But eating good, hydrating, stretching, I would put going on walks or light exercise in this category as well. I have a migraine disorder as well, so exercise, and I actually have POTS too, so exercise is a little tough for me. So light exercise, meditation, which we are actually going to talk about in just a little bit, and therapy, all those things helped. What you're going to find with habituating to tinnitus is there's not this one thing you're going to do that's going to help you habituate. There's a term that I love. It's called Kaizen. It's another video for another time, but it means continuous improvement. And I think that rather than finding this one magic bullet, when we continuously improve by small steps, inch by inch, when we continuously improve the main areas of our life, sleep, diet, all that kind of stuff, exercise. I think that we have more of a bandwidth to deal with the stressors of life, tinnitus included. So the next thing that I did is, and I can't take credit for this, I got this from Glenn Schweitzer, who's the author of Rewiring Tinnitus. I've had the privilege of doing some coaching sessions with him in the beginning that really kind of helped put me on the right path. But in his book, he talks about meditating, and when you meditate, actively listening to your tinnitus. And it sounds crazy, but I can say it really does work, because what happens is when you listen to your tinnitus, you're naturally going to have a response to it, but you can train yourself to not have a negative emotional response to it. And you can just say, hey, I don't like this, but it's here, and I'm going to learn to live with it. I heard this story one time. I can't remember where I heard it. It's like a fable about this astronaut who went up into space. And when he got up into space, he noticed that he was by himself. There was this clock that was ticking, or some sort of ticking noise. And it was driving him insane. And he said, you know what? He came to the point where he said, this is something, I can't control this, but I can control my response to it. And so this is something I'm going to have to learn to live with. And so I think that we can kind of do that same thing when we focus on our tinnitus. We can learn to control our response to it. Now, I know that this can sound a little counterintuitive when you're thinking about the second point that I made, which was that one of the ways that I habituated was I stopped monitoring my tinnitus. Listening to your tinnitus and training yourself to not respond to it negatively is much different than monitoring our tinnitus in an attempt to calm our anxieties. What happens when we meditate is that we listen to our tinnitus, we train ourselves not to respond to it, and then when we're done, we don't monitor it outside of that. Monitoring is much different from meditation. Another thing that I did that helped is I studied Stoicism, and this kind of ties in with the training your emotional response thing. Is Stoicism, what Stoicism teaches us is that we can't control what happens to us in this life, but we can control our response to it. And so that philosophy really helped me. If that's something that you're interested in, I'd pick up the book The Daily Stoic. It's a devotional of sorts that has a Stoic devotional in it every day, and it's a great place to start. The last thing that I did is, this is a tough one, but I just gave it time. I want to acknowledge that there were times on my journey where I felt hopeless, and I just thought to myself, how can I go on like this for the rest of my life? I can't comprehend A, how I can go on like this, and B, that things are going to get any better. I'm 2.5 years in, and I can honestly say I'm living a great life. I love my life. I look forward to waking up in the morning. I hate going to sleep because I just want to be able to do the stuff I love the next day. And so, I think that took time for me to get to that place, though. So whenever you have a moment of darkness, or whenever you have a moment of hopelessness, I want you to remember this. I believe that no matter how bad your tinnitus is, that you can habituate to it. I do want to acknowledge as well that some people have tinnitus that is worse than others. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing when it comes to tinnitus. And so some people will have maybe a little bit of a harder time habituating. I want to be sensitive to that. But even to those people, I want to say, I truly believe that things are going to get better for you. I think that developing the right mindset and the right attitude has a lot to do with it. For me personally, I had to go from being a victim to being a victor, and I did that kind of by doing all the things I'm talking about in this video. So remember, it just takes time. Time's going to run its course. And as you kaizen, as you start to incorporate these points into your life, these things that we've talked about today, as you focus on living a healthier life and you raise your threshold for just kind of what you're able to handle emotionally. I really, really believe that things can get better for you. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to invest in the work that I'm doing, I'd be honored if you would become a member on my Buy Me a Coffee page. That link is below. I'm going to make many more videos like this, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. No matter what you're going through, things are going to get better. You are strong and you have what it takes to get through this. I believe in you. And if you ever want to reach out to me, feel free to. I'm on Instagram at Adam Reid Wilson, ADAMREIDWILSON. Thanks so much and have a great night.